You're listening to Manx Radio, and I'm Judith Lay, welcoming you to the podcast of the Manx Sky at Night with Howard Parkin.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Well, I'm fading the music down immediately because we have got so much to talk with Howard Parkin about as we welcome him into the studio for this month's edition of the Manx Sky at Night. Howard, faster my.
Faster my, Judith. It's great to be here again.
Well, there just seems to be so much happening with Artemis too, making headlines on the television
yes.
and everything. And that's before we start talking about our own Manx skies. And we actually did some stargazing, didn't we, Howard?
We did indeed. When I came to the station this afternoon, or tonight, just before we went on air, Judith came to let me in, as she does. And I said, just come outside here, Judith. And there was the moon, almost a full moon, full in a few days' time on Friday, I think it is. And just to the right of the moon, very bright, unmistakable star, which isn't a star, of course, it's the planet Jupiter. And so I was able to point that out to Judith, which she was fascinated by, you'll be pleased to know. And then below it, Judith spotted a star. What's that star below it? That star below it is the star Procyon, the principal star in the constellation of Canis Minor, the little dog.
Well, do you know, the thing about it is, Howard, that month after month, we do the same thing. I go down, I let you in, and the sky is never suitable.
No.
It's the first time.
I think it must be for many and many a time that we've actually saw something. As soon as I came up to the studio, I saw that the sky was clear.
Because you always look. You've got a professional interest, and so you always look to see what's going on. But generally, it's not necessarily thick cloud for the whole of the sky, but it's just where it needs to be. So
this was right out the doors. You come to the door Manx Radio studio, turn around, look at the sky, and there it is, Jupiter. Can't miss it.
I somehow feel entitled to do the programme now. I've never seen that. So off you go, Howard. We need to know. You're not exactly a happy boy now. We've changed the clocks, are you?
No. It's too light in the evenings now. Why don't we go the other way and make it darker in the evenings? I'm only joking, listeners.
He isn't joking. Right, Howard. What can we see subject to conditions?
Well, obviously, we need clear skies. And even though we might complain about the clocks going forward, it's still dark. I mean, now it's 9 o'clock at night, or 9:30, and it's pitch black out there. We saw Jupiter, as I said just before, and the sky in this time of the year is an interesting time of the year because we're losing the bright winter constellations. Those of you who know the bright constellations of Orion and Canis Major, Canis Minor, I've just mentioned, and Gemini with Jupiter, very, very visible inside Gemini at the moment. Those stars are all slowly drifting off to the west, and they're going to set in the west, and indeed will be lost then until we get to late autumn next year or this year, and then they'll be visible once again. But what we've got in the sky now are a number of bright constellations in the springtime, which are quite distinctive in their own way. The first of these I want to point out to you is actually right next to the moon at the moment. The moon actually today, depending where you live, the Jupiter went over, it occulted the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo the Lion. And Leo the Lion is one of these few constellations that looks a little bit like what the ancient people wanted it to look like. The ancient idea of the Nemean lion, the lion that was slain by Hercules in one of his labours, has got the moon right bang in the middle of it at the moment. So, of course, you can't see it at the moment, but give it a few days' time. As the moon slowly drifts away from it, you'll be left with the bright star Regulus and the constellation of Leo the Lion. Leo the Lion, of course, one of the signs of the zodiac. I'm a Leo. I was born in August. That's when Leo the Lion is. And not far from Leo, heading towards the east, towards England, towards the Lake District, you have another bright star called Virgo. And Virgo is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo the Virgin, also known as Astrea, the goddess of the harvest. And what I want to point out to people today in particular is if you find the star Regulus and the star Spica, and incidentally, there's another way to find it. If you look in the northern sky, northeastern sky, and find the stars of the plough, curve the handle of the curve of the handle of the plough points down to a star called Arcturus. Follow that same line down, and you come to Spica. So you've got Regulus, you've got Spica, and you've got Arcturus. Three brightest stars in the spring sky, which we can see very clearly from the Isle of Man. Now, not far from Spiker, and you do need a dark night to see this, so we don't need to be looking at this when there's a full moon around, which is going to be on April the 2nd. So give it at least another week. Find the star Spiker, remember, down to Arcturus from the Plough, then onto the star Spiker. Look directly above it. And there are 3 very faint stars, and there's 3 very faint stars. You need a dark sky sight, one of our wonderful Isle of Man dark sky sights to see this. You'll see 3 very faint stars. These are the stars of the constellation of Coma Berenices. And Coma Berenices is the only constellation in the whole sky that is actually named after a real person. All the others are fictitious or mythological or whatever. But this star in particular, this constellation in particular, is named after Coma Berenices, the Queen Berenices. She was Queen of Egypt. She was married to Ptolemy III. And her husband went off to war. And when her husband went off to war, she vowed that if he returned safely, she would chop all her hair off and give it to the gods as an offering. Well, her husband returned safely from war. She duly chopped all her hair off, placed it on the altar in the local church, and then the hair disappeared. The court astrologers, and that's the one time I talk about astrologers, the court astrologers said the gods were so pleased with your offering, we've placed your hair in the sky. And if you look at this part of the sky, that's why I mentioned it, above the Spiker I mentioned before, pair of binoculars is probably better. You'll see that there's a faint shimmering sort of effect. There's not just stars, there's something odd about that whole area of the sky. And this is because this is the hair. This is the hair of Berenices, shining in the sky, placed in the sky by the gods who were so pleased at her sacrifice. Of course, that's the mythology of it. The reality is there's what we call a star cluster. It's called the Coma Star Cluster, which is just at the edge of naked eye visibility. That's why you need binoculars really to look at it better. And you'll see there's lots of stars in this part of the sky. And I thought it's fascinating. This is the time of the year to see it this month and next month. I'll probably mention this next month as well. But if you look at this part of the sky, the legend of Coma, the legend of Berenices and her hair is very vivid and very easy to spot. And interestingly enough, if you look deeper into this particular part of the sky, you find thousands and thousands of galaxies way out beyond our own Milky Way, something like 300 million light years away. And these are what we call the Coma cluster. And this is a cluster of galaxies that we can see through big telescopes. And so although we've lost the bright winter constellations, we have still got these wonderful features in the night sky in April, which we've just a reasonable pair of binoculars to be able to make out these things for yourself and just wonder just why did this queen, the only living person or the person that's ever lived on the planet who's got a constellation named after them.
Absolutely fascinating story, Howard. I was just engrossed there because it's, as you said, you've got a lot of mythology and legend that, as we say, you can well understand how people who knew so very little about the constellation, about the sky, would make up stories that fitted what they could see. But that, to link it with a person, albeit a few years ago,
one or two.
But it is a terrific story.
It is. It's a lovely story, and you link that to the Andromeda story, which we've done before. We did that in autumn. And those two legends in particular, there's a little tiny bit of visual evidence that proves that what they were doing at the time, they knew what they were looking for. And this idea of the hair, and there's some beautiful, if you just put Coma Berenice on the internet and see some beautiful pictures of the queen with her big, long, flowing locks. And that's what she chopped off to sacrifice for her husband when he came back from war.
Her crowning glory. And
Indeed.
A lot of store, is put by her, but was then.
Oh, yeah.
Even more so, wasn't it?
It was
so
those years ago.
Fascinating.
It is a great story.
Now, here's something that fascinates me. Your glass ceiling lecture.
Yes.
A glass ceiling lecture? Now, what's this?
Well, this is a lecture. I'll be honest with you. I put this together a few months ago now for Ailish Corlett. I don't know if anyone knows Ailish Corlett. Give Ailish a shout out. Hi, Ailish. Hope you're listening. She asked me to give a talk about ladies in science and astronomy.
Yes.
And so I put together a short talk, and she got Nicole Stott, who was on the island a few weeks ago. We got to meet her, and she did the stamps and met lots of people. But she gave a short video to welcome the ladies of the Level Up Club, which is the club that this ladies all are in. And so I gave this lecture, and I only mentioned about 4 different ladies in particular: Henrietta Leavitt, Jocelyn Bell, and I can't remember the other one, Caroline Herschel. They're very famous astronomers in their own right. And I thought I could expand this. And, I looked into it, and you'd be amazed what I learned. And I thought, I'm going to do a new lecture on this. And this was meant to be for International Women's Day, which was just after I came back for the last time I'd been away. Unfortunately, it had to get postponed. It was meant to be on the 23rd of March or whenever. Anyway, it's now on the 17th of April. And I'm really pleased with it. I actually delivered it on the ship. I've just come back from being on a ship. And I delivered it for the very first time on a ship. And it went down extremely well. And the ladies love it. Even the men love it. There's some stories about how women have been treated in science and astronomy. It's horrifying and alarming, the things that have gone on. And it's, if you like, it's my duty, if you like, to bring this to people's attention. For instance, there's a lady called Hypatia. Hypatia lived in ancient Greek times. And Hypatia lived in ancient Greek. And she was very outspoken. And she was a scientist and a philosopher. They killed her because she dared to speak out, and it wasn't the role of women to speak out in philosophy in those times.
That's the whole point, Howard.
Yeah.
These people from Bible times,
Yeah.
powerful, knowledgeable, skilled women, they were kept down
Suppressed,
because
yeah.
it wasn't the culture of the time. You know, and even now, there in certain countries,
absolutely.
that it's a male-dominated culture. But let's go back to the Corlett family, because Ailish, I know Ailish, and it's great to hear that you're involved with her Level Up Club. But also, her dad, Gary, is a very accomplished member of your...
Oh, yes, he's been our treasurer for years. He keeps threatening to step down, but we won't let him. He's been a treasurer of our society now since, I think, about 2005. I think he's must have come up to his 25th year or 23rd year, I think.
But he's not just the treasurer. He's very much involved.
Oh, he's
in
very involved in the society.
Things that go on in the
He
sky.
has been for many years, and long will it continue. And we're always exchanging emails and pictures and one thing and the other. And it's a great family to be involved with. And when Ailish asked me to do this, I thought, well, go on, I can just throw a few slides together, which is what I did. But then it's grown.
Yeah.
And now, if anyone's interested, 17th of April at Peel Golf Club, tickets available through Tynwald Restaurant.
Right, there we are. Something I spotted when I was looking at the things that were on display. There were posters on display in the cathedral whilst Mars was there, and they were all about scientists in different areas of science. But there was one, and forgive me, I should have made a note of her name, and I didn't. She discovered a planet when she was still at school. She was so keen on looking at the sky. She was fascinated by the skies.
Was it a comet or a planet?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a comet. I'm sorry. You see, I'm not fit to be let out unsupervised.
And that lady does feature in my lecture, and I can't remember her name. It wasn't Celia Payne. That's the other one.
No, I should have made a note, and I didn't.
You'll just have to come to my lecture, Judith.
I thought of you at the time. I thought, I must talk to her. But you're right.
She was the first woman to be given an award by the king of, I think it was Norway or Finland. She was an American, and she was given an award, the first woman to receive an international award for an astronomical discovery.
Really?
And that was
but she was still
Caroline Herschel. Could have been Caroline Herschel.
I'm struggling
I'll
here.
have to go home and look it up in my lecture.
Ring me when you get home.
I will do.
But
4 o'clock in the morning.
the point that she was, that's fine, we'll be here. The point is that she was saying to try and encourage other young people, be inquisitive, keep looking,
Absolutely.
whatever it is you're interested in, be inquisitive.
I must just tell you one story which really fascinated me, and it upset me, I suppose. This lady called Celia Payne Celia Koposchkin became her name. She studied for a degree in astrophysics, and she studied at Cambridge University. She did all the work, she wrote a thesis and did everything. And then when she got to graduation, sorry, we don't give degrees to women. In disgust, she went to live in America. She went to work at MIT, and she discovered a major thing about stars, the spectral sequence of stars, which I won't bore you with now. But she discovered this particular aspect of astrophysics. She went to her professor and suggested that she publish it. He said, oh, no, we're not ready for that now. Leave it, please. And then he published in his name a few years later.
Do you know,
that's what went on.
I just knew you were going to say that. And that's even worse than being suppressed.
It is.
To have someone else to take credit for your work.
And now, I mean, I'll be honest with you, this old lecture all came about because I'm sure many listeners have seen the film Hidden Figures. And that was part of the inspiration for this talk, Hidden Figures, about the black mathematicians who helped NASA get into space and all the rest. Wonderful film. If you haven't seen it, it's called Hidden Figures. And she is now recognised, Katherine Johnson, as a major contributor to the space effort. And not only was she a woman, but she was black as well. And so she had so much against her. But she has now risen up and now is revered as one of the leading astrophysicists and scientists in the world of space science.
Howard, it is your duty to perfect that talk and give it everywhere that you can.
It is now going to be I have a talk, which I've been doing the Dark Skies talk for the last 3 or 4 years on the island. I think everyone who wants to hear it has heard it. So my new lecture now, for anyone who wants it, is called Breaking the Glass Ceiling. And if you want me to deliver it to any group or organisation, just get in touch with me. And but be warned, I've got a waiting list at the moment, so it might be some time till I can do it.
Waiting list.
Terrible, I'm afraid.
You're in the presence of greatness here, aren't we?
I don't know about that.
Let's decompress with a little bit of music, shall we?
So.
I think that'd be a good idea. And your choice for us this month is Good Morning Starshine.
Exactly.
Anything to do with the light nights?
No, we will ignore them.
And after this, we will be finding out, I think top of the list to talk about is the Artemis 2 launch, which is scheduled for next Wednesday.
Yep.
Good morning, starshine. The earth says hello. You twinkle above us, we twinkle below. Good morning, starshine. You lead us along, my love and me, as we sing our early morning singing song. Blitty gloop gloopy nibby nabby nooby la 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 lo lo. Abba sibby sabba dooby abba dabba li lo lo. Dooby dooby walla dooby abba dabba. Early morning singing song. Good morning, starshine. There's love in your skies, reflecting the sunlight in my lover's eyes. Good morning, sunshine. So happy to be, my love and me, as we sing our early morning singing song. Blitty gloop gloopy nibby nabby nooby la 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 lo lo. Saba sibby saba nooby abba nabba li lo lo. Ooby ooby walla nooby abba nabba. Early morning singing song. Can you hear me singing a song, loving a song, singing a song?
Well, I've got to apologise to Oliver. It's a great song, but I can't wait to start talking to Howard Parkin about the Artemis 2 launch, which is just making international news at the moment. So welcome back to the second part of the March edition of the Manx Sky at Night, with Howard Parkin in the studio, and he says this next bit of the programme is all about NASA.
Absolutely. I'm afraid there's so much to talk about with the Artemis 2 mission and the Artemis programme in general. It'd be remiss of me to do otherwise. And it is literally only a few days away. The launch is scheduled for April the 1st. If it doesn't go April the 1st, it'll probably go the 3rd or the 5th or so on. We're in a launch window that opens on the beginning of April. If it doesn't go in April, it'll go early May or early June. They will go when they're ready. And curiously enough, I've actually been speaking to people at NASA via emails, and they've all said they'll go when they're ready. Yes, they know the public want to go, and they'll be disappointed if it gets postponed. It was meant to go in early March. In fact, I can tell you truthfully, Judith, I was actually on a cruise ship when it was meant to be launched, and we had plans to show it on the big screen on the ship in the massive theatre. And it got pulled because there was a leak and they had to send it back to be fixed. And so they rolled it back out again on the 19th of March. And now it's all scheduled for launch on this Wednesday. And NASA are really pushing the boat out as regards publicity. If you want to watch any aspect of this launch at all, I'm not sure the exact time it's meant to launch. I think for our time it's going to be something like 10 o'clock at night, but I could be wrong on that. If you go to ignition/NASA on the website, they've got literally non-stop TV talking about this mission. I can't speak in more highly about how important this mission is. This is the return to the moon. This is the first moon mission, including astronauts, to go into space since 1972. This mission is going to take them. Older people like myself will remember the mission of Apollo 8, where they went to the moon at Christmas and read from Genesis and showed us that beautiful picture of the Earthrise. This is almost a repeat of that mission. They're launching this spacecraft, Artemis 2. It's the second launch of the SLS rocket and the Orion spacecraft. It's got a crew of 4 on board. They're going to go round the back of the moon and back again. They're not going to orbit around the moon. They're just going to take a loop around the moon and back again. And NASA have now announced that they're not going to send the next mission, Artemis 3, to the moon, to land on the moon. They are going to have another mission now, the Artemis 3 mission, which will go in, assuming this one goes successfully and everything works well. The Artemis 3 mission will be an Earth orbit mission to test the lunar lander. And then Artemis 4 will land on the moon in 2028. And all of this is planned. All of this is now, all the architecture's there for it. There was a big question mark about how they're going to land on the moon. And they're going to land on the moon either with a Starship rocket from SpaceX, a Starship lander, or a Blue Origin's rocket. It is called Blue Moon, incidentally. We should have used that song, Judith. And if I was a betting man, I would say Blue Origins are going to get there, because this is a straight landing vehicle. They're going to launch to the moon. They're going to launch the lander on a separate rocket. They're going to rendezvous in lunar orbit and land on the surface. And the first test of that is in 27, assuming this mission now goes successfully. So there's a huge amount of pressure. There's a huge amount of anticipation about this Artemis 2 mission. And well, I just can't wait to see it happen, and I'll be avidly watching the television and watching the launch. It'll be a 10-day mission, so for the next 10 days from when it goes to when it comes back, it'll be very exciting. And it's just like when I was a kid. I was about 20 years old. I was 18, 19 when they did the Apollo 11 and 10 and 12 and all those. And now its history is repeating itself. It's taken us 50-odd years, but we're nearly there, and this rocket will launch very soon. If it doesn't go April 1st, it'll go in a few days later, or even in the May window, but it's on the way, definitely.
Well, as soon as I saw that they were giving a lot of national news coverage, I clicked one of the links that took me to the BBC website. Absolutely fantastic, because for the first time, using very good use of AI, you could scroll through various stages of it being brought out, all the things you talk about for being brought out to wherever it was being kept and being fixed, brought out into the launching area, shows you all of that. And then it takes you through all the stages, shows you all the inside of it. Yeah. But also it doesn't shy away from the danger of it.
Absolutely.
And it tells you which bits are the danger, that the ones where it's most likely for something to if something is going to happen, this is where it might happen. But also there were some lovely little personal things that I spotted in it, that each of the astronauts can take something personal with them, and I can't remember. I can only remember 2 of them. One of them is taking some pendants from his wife and child or children, and another one is taking just a piece of paper and a pen, because he says, I just want to write down what I see and what I feel when we are going round the dark side of the moon. Yeah. But I had to smile with the Canadian astronaut, who said that he really felt as though he was going to take up too much space because he's much taller than the others.
Much bigger than the others, yeah.
And he felt he was being a bit greedy with the space, because that's the other thing they show you is how limited their working space is.
Oh, yeah, but they're in zero gravity. And the thing that fascinated me about that video, and I saw the same thing, is you see the couches, you see the 4 couches, and they look like sunbeds. They're literally sunbeds, tubular steel with seats on them. But of course, they completely fold them away when they get into orbit, and that'll give them much more space. I can give you a very tiny Manx link to this mission.
Ooh.
Very tiny Manx link.
We want a Manx link
to
a moon mission.
Remember when Tim Peake was here? Tim Peake came to the Villa Marina. I got the chance to meet him. Lovely bloke and everything else. He was putting his name forward. There may be the 3 NASA astronauts on this spacecraft and a Canadian. There was a remote chance of having a British person, one of the ESA astronauts, and there was a decision made as to which one of the ESA countries, which includes Canada incidentally, got that space, and Tim Peake was hoping to get it. He didn't get it. The Canadian got it, and the rest is history. But we could just about have had a British guy there, but it didn't happen. And good luck to, I forgot his name now, the Canadian guy. But yes, they're all very excited about it, and There's stuff you can get on the internet now, and the details, and the astronauts get themselves keep issuing updates about what's going on and everything else. And
you can truly get very involved in it,
hugely,
and really understand, which I think for something big like this is really important. What interests me, how just listening to what you're saying, that they're aiming for 2028 is the landing. So they must be developing these missions kind of side by side. It's not a question of you wait for one to finish, then you start the next one.
In fact, NASA, now you may recall we discussed this a few months ago, that Jared Isaacman has been made the administrator of NASA now. And Jared Isaacman had a huge announcement, mega announcement made by NASA about 3 weeks ago. And this announcement was basically to change the architecture of how they're going to get to the moon with Artemis. They changed from Artemis 2 to Artemis 3 to Artemis 4, like I said. They've postponed the Lunar Gateway, which is the space station in orbit around the moon. They've postponed that now, decided to go ahead with a direct landing, probably, as I say, using Blue Origins, but SpaceX is still in the frame for that if their rocket is ready. They've also announced 2 missions to the planets. They've announced a mission to Mars, and they're going to this is called the Skyfall mission, for those who like James Bond. And the Skyfall mission is going to deploy helicopters. Instead of landing the spacecraft on the surface of Mars, which is very difficult to do, they're going to get into the Martian atmosphere and deploy helicopters, like they've already flown on Mars already, the Ingenuity helicopter, and they're going to do that on Mars, and they're going to launch that in 2028. They're also sending a spacecraft to the moon around Saturn called Titan, and that one is called Dragonfly, and Dragonfly is going to do exactly the same, round a moon of Saturn. It's just mind-blowing stuff. And Jared Isaacman, I think, has got an awful lot of respect in the space community. He's doing things properly. He's doing all the publicity. He's backed off from sending Artemis 3 to the moon direct. He's realised this is a step too quick, too far. So let's have an extra mission. And that announcement he made, if you just look up on the internet, NASA's new innovations, if you like to call it, and there's so much they're going to do, and it's a very exciting time, and it all starts on Wednesday with Artemis 2.
But of course, when they're NASA-controlled, whatever they are, missions or developments, they're not driven by commercial...
They are, because the landers... I'm glad you mentioned that, Judith, because one of the things they made in this statement was, yes, NASA's job is to explore and push the boundaries and everything else, but they're doing that hand in hand with commercial enterprise. The lunar landers, the 2 lunar landers that are being developed, are both private companies. One's Blue Origins, which is Jeff Bezos' Amazon company. I'm sure we all know what Amazon do. The other, of course, is SpaceX and Elon Musk. There are a lot of other independent companies, commercial companies, who are working in partnership very closely with NASA.
Yeah, but if it's a partnership, what I'm meaning is, if it's a partnership with NASA, then NASA are not going to do anything just for the sake of profit.
Oh, no.
Okay, it's good that they're working with commercial organisations because it's generating jobs, I would imagine.
A huge amount,
yeah. And profitability for the economy. But I do still think that, we need to be a bit careful about, we're putting an awful lot of stuff up there, aren't we?
Oh, well, one of the problems, we mentioned this before, and it is a problem, and I do not see any easy answers to this, the amount of orbital stuff that's up there in space. Space is very big, but when you consider how many satellites we're launching up there all the time.
This is what, I'm listening to what you're saying, and it is tremendously exciting. But I do think it worries me. It worries me greatly that how much is going up there.
Oh, it is. It is a problem, and it's going to have to be dealt with soon enough.
In the last 20 seconds, Howard, what do we need to know beyond the fact that you'll be back in a month's time?
In a month's time, and we're doing my lectures April the 17th. But watch the TV, watch very closely on Wednesday, and indeed any day after that, because once it gets launched, there's going to be so much news about it, and it'll be very exciting, and I look forward to sharing it all with you. Hopefully by the time we meet at the end of April, they'll be back safely, and we can be discussing about the next steps, which will be Artemis 3 going into Earth orbit. A bit boring compared to going to the moon, but very essential part of it. But let's look forward to that.
Howard Parkin, Faster My, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure, Judith.